appreciating the stories of the Quran will help us on how to navigate things. Sometimes we go through pains in our lives. So I look at the previous Ummah. How did they do it? For example, the story of Ashab al-Kahf. Sometimes maybe I'm not strong in my religion. And I'm young, I don't know what to do. Come, I look at the story of Ashab al-Kahf. But I know sometimes people give example. No, their time is different from our time. I understand. We are technologically advanced than them. But challenges are challenges. It's the same human being with blood inside them and bones. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. A'udhu billahi as-sami' al-alim min ash-shaytan al-la'in ar-rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الغر الميامين المنتجبين. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Once again, my dear brothers and sisters, lovers and the followers of Ahlul Bayt, those who try their level best to observe the fasting in this holy month of Ramadan, we thank Allah for gracing us with this moment, the 16th night of the holy month of Ramadan. The verse I've just quoted is Quran 12, verse number 3, Surah to Yusuf. MashaAllah. It's a very beautiful verse discussing the importance of the stories of the Holy Quran, Qasasul Quran. What I seek to do tonight is to discuss the need for the stories of the Holy Quran. But before I do that, I would like to recap whatever we discussed in the last 14 nights we've been here. Our theme is in the realm of the Holy Quran. And we looked at so many topics or titles in relation to this very important theme. So let me recap, and then I will share some action plans practically, and then we take it from there. First night, we looked at abandoning the Holy Quran. How our beloved Prophet will complain on the day of Qiyamah as to how his ummah, his nation, will abandon the Holy Quran. وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. We discussed that. We looked at some of the manifestations of abandoning the Holy Quran. We said anyone who does not know how to recite the Holy Quran properly in its original language, intentionally so, it is regarded as abandoning the Holy Quran. And the Holy Prophet will complain on the day of Qiyamah. The other way of abandoning the Holy Quran is not seeking the understanding of the Holy Quran. So sometimes I know how to recite, but I do not necessarily invest my time, my energy in seeking the understanding of the Holy Quran. Anyone who does that intentionally, it is no doubt regarded as abandoning the Holy Quran. Another form of abandoning the Holy Quran is not applying or implementing the teachings of the Holy Quran. Sometimes I seek the understanding, but unfortunately, I don't necessarily implement my understanding of the Holy Quran in my life. So we looked at that, if you remember very well. And then we went ahead in the second night to discuss our responsibilities towards the Holy Quran. Because this is a great gift of Allah to us. We cannot leave it on our shelves without opening it now and then. So we as Muslims, regardless of our backgrounds and circumstances, we have duties towards the Holy Quran. And as we mentioned, fundamental duties I and you have towards this great book is to cherish this book and make this book a top-notch priority in our lives. Quran has to be central to our lives. Sometimes you meet a Muslim and you ask him, when last did you open the Holy Quran? He or she cannot remember. That is an indication of not making Quran a top-notch priority in my life. So we have very important role to ensure that Quran is priority. And of course we said one of the responsibilities we have towards Quran is active recitation of the Holy Quran, if you remember. Although most of those who come, they are not here tonight, and I'm sure they will watch it online. Active recitation of the Holy Quran. What is active recitation? You recite. But as you recite, you interact with the verses. You try to look at what Allah is trying to say. This is not going to tafsir. Tafsir is different. For example, I quoted a tradition on that night from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil fariyah. That in هذا القرآن لا يقرأ حذرما يعني بسرعة. This Quran, you do not recite it hurriedly, quickly. You just recite. People are just recite. إنما يرتل ترتيلا. It is indeed to be recited in a measured way. And Imam Ja'far said, when you come across a verse discussing hellfire, you stop and seek refuge. And when you come across a verse discussing heaven, you stop and ask Allah to grant you heaven. So it is our duty towards Quran that when I take hold of Quran, I actively recite it. I don't just recite for the sake of recitation. Of course, if I recite in any way, I will get some reward from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Because the Prophet tells us, for each letter you recite, you are granted 10 rewards from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Then we looked at 5 ways of approaching Quran, if you remember. There are 5 ways I and you can approach Quran. And these 5 ways, there is no way we will adapt 1 or 2 without taking some benefits. The first way they call al-istidhar. You rely on the apparent meanings of the Holy Quran. So anyone, for example, who knows Arabic very well, when you open Quran, without knowing the tafsir, you will get something. Likewise, if you take a translation, say in Urdu, say in Farsi, say in English, or in any other language, so long as you understand that language, you'll understand something. So that is al-istidhar. The other way to approach Quran, and we said istizhar, you don't need anyone to help you. You can do it yourself. Tafsir, that's the second way. Tafsir is determining the intended meanings behind the verses by Allah. That I cannot do it on my own. I need to depend on tafsirs from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi wassalam. And the Prophet said, Man fassara al-Qur'ana bi ra'yihi falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar. Whoever gives Quran tafsir and commentary out of his or her own opinion should prepare for his or her abode in fire. So for tafsir, I need the Holy Prophets, I need the Ahlul Bayt. And remember, I give example, even Mufassirin of the Quran, whether Sunnahs or Shi'as. In Shia, for example, Allama Tabatabai, for example. Or Allama Tabarisi in Majmul Bayan, for example. Or Atullah Makarim Shirazi, for example. Or Tafsir Tasneem, it's a current one, of Atullah Jawadi Amuli. Or you go to the Sunni world, there are so many tafsir. Jalalain, Itqan, Fasayuti, you've got them so many. Al-Kashaf, Zamakhshari. All these, it is not from them. It is as per their understandings of the teachings of the Holy Prophets. And of course, the Shias of the Ahlul Bayt again. So tafsir by self-opinion is not allowed. The third way we can relate to Quran, I call it ta'wil. Because Quran is of two main type of verses. You've got muhkamat, you've got mutashabihat. We discussed this into details if you remember. Muhkamat are the clear verses of the Holy Quran. Mutashabihat are the ambiguous verses of the Holy Quran. To understand mutashabihat, you need to take it and refer it back to muhkamat. I said this also, I cannot do it myself. No mufassir will be able to do. The mufassir has to rely on the Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. And then the fourth one is what is called al-istibtan. Yani butunul Quran. It's understanding the inner meanings of the verse of the Holy Quran. That also I can't. I have to rely on the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. And I gave an example of the two verses where Allah said, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَ. That parent mothers should breastfeed their children for 2 years. And then you have another ayah, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شَهْرًا. The conception, the pregnancy, and the weaning of a child are 30 months. So he said the secret of this is what? You minus 24 months from 30 months. What remain? 6 months. Meaning the minimum pregnancy time is 6 months. So that's the secret. Istibtan. And then the last one we said tadabbur. Tadabbur is reflection. You don't need anyone. You can do your own reflection. So long as you don't impose your reflection on anyone. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Can't they reflect on the verse of the Holy Quran, or their heart are sealed and blocked? So when it comes to reflection, you can all do reflections. You look at the ayah, you say, this is what I understand from the ayah. You don't say, this is the tafsir of the ayah. When you say this is the tafsir of the ayah, it is self-opinion, Habibi. So we looked at that. And then of course we discussed Ahlul Bayt and the Holy Quran. You remember? And we looked at their roles towards Quran. And we concluded saying, they are the main and authentic teachers of the Holy Quran. إنما يفسر القرآن من خوطب به. هذا قول أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. That the one who gives the commentary of the Quran is the one whom Quran was addressed to. Allah addressed this Quran to someone, the Holy Prophet. And then of course, came down to Ahlul Bayt. Salamullah alayhim ajma'in. So therefore, the relationship of Ahlul Bayt and Quran is what? وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَعْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. No one knows the interpretation of the Holy Quran apart from Allah and those who are deeply grounded in knowledge. Then from there we looked at the 5 stars, the Panjitan, as you call, and their relationship with the Holy Quran. So we first look at the Holy Prophet and Quran, if you remember. And that night we quoted so many verses of the Holy Quran. And on how our beloved Prophet built relationship with the Holy Quran. And his invitation to his lovers and followers to hold onto the Holy Quran. To certain extent, you remember that riwayah. Inna al-Qur'ana ahdullahi ala khalqih. Quran is Allah's covenant over his servants, or is Allah's covenant to his servants. فَيَنْبَغِي لِمْرِئٍ مُسْلِمٍ أَنْ يَنْظُرَ إِلَىٰ أَحَدِهِ وَيَقْرَأْ فِي كُلِّ يَوْمٍ 50 آيَةٍ. Prophet, he said, it is incumbent of a Muslim to every day look at this covenant and at least recite 50 verses. But then you remember towards the end we quoted another hadith where the Holy Prophet said, whoever recites 10 verses every day or every night, lam yuktab min al-ghafilin. That person will not forsake Allah. So we look at that, Prophet and Quran. We then looked at Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen and Quran. And we discussed into details how Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen built his relationship with the Holy Quran. We looked at his knowledge of ta'wil. We looked at his knowledge of the secret of the Holy Quran. And we look at some examples of the tafsirs given by Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. We then discussed Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam and the Holy Quran. Then we went to Imam Hassan and the Holy Quran and Sayyid al-Shuhada and the Holy Quran. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, if you remember very well. And we said to such an extent, the head of Imam al-Hussein recited Quran. When we looked at Yahya, the son of Zakaria, upon his martyrdom, his head recited verses of Allah. We look at Mu'min Ali Yasin, Habib al-Najjar. قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني. The head of Habib al-Najjar recited it upon his martyrdom. Because they killed Habib al-Najjar. You read the history of Yasin. I remember I encouraged you to do so. Then we look at Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, isn't it? When he passed away during the battle of Mu'atta, he also recited, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ الْأَمْوَاتَ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Chapter Al-Imran, you remember very well, alhamdulillah. And then of course we looked at Abu Abdullah, salamullah alayhi, where his head recites chapter, verse from Surah Al-Kahf, and the rest. So these are all very important to encourage us to hold on to the Holy Quran. And then of course, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, if you remember very well, we then looked at Quran and the best way of thinking. Quran doesn't want us to follow blindly. Quran wants us to think and reflect. Quran wants us to ask questions and not to follow blindly. And we discussed it. Don't follow blindly. Whatever you hear or you read and it doesn't make sense, seek clarification. So that's also very, very important. And then we discuss, of course, the healing power of the Holy Quran. And we focus more on mental health and stuff like that. And how Quran invited us to ensure that we use it as a vehicle for our healing. But if you remember, we mentioned that night, Quran again encourage us to seek help outside also. So you go to the experts, but at the same time you use also Quran. So you cannot say, I'm going to just depend on Quran and I'm not going to go to a medical doctor, for example. And we mentioned mental health is a reality. We discuss it into details from the psychological perspective and from the Islamic perspective. And then, of course, we celebrated the life of Imam Hassan last night, and we look at 8 verses of the Holy Quran where Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba appeared. And tonight here we are to wrap up everything, isn't it? And as I said, tonight is a brief introduction to the histories or the stories, if you like, of the Holy Quran. Qasas is the plural of qissa. Ahsanta. So I will give you a brief introduction, and then inshallah we can answer a few questions and make dua. But as I said before the questions, I want to give you some action plans. There are those I'm sure they are watching online who have been coming, and those of who are here, some action plans so that you continue building your relationship with the Holy Quran as individuals and as community. Because we cannot stay away from Quran. Quran is everything that we have in Ahlul Bayt. And it is not too late. But I will look at that briefly once I'm done. So you see, Quran is divided at least into 3 departments. It's a big book. The most authentic book on earth. There is, even non-Muslims can vouch for this. There is no book like the Holy Quran. This is the only book that you find 3-year-old is reciting it in its original language. You agree? Give me any book that people now recite in their original language. They do, but they struggle. This is the only book that you find 4-year-old memorize everything here. Everything is here. That's the miracle of the Holy Quran. Kalamul la yumallu sima'uhu, as they say. You know, Quran is a speech that nobody gets bored of listening to it. So Al-Quranu ma'dubatullah. Quran is Allah's dining. You remember? So you go, you are invited for iftar or suhoor, and you have varieties on that table. You eat whatever you want. So it's a Quran ma'dubatullah. It's Allah's dining. You just take whatever you can and then you leave the rest. Because you'll never finish. The more you delve in, the more you realize you know nothing about it. But as I said, you'll not go away empty. So 3 departments. First department of the Holy Quran is Aqaid wa Qiyamul Imaniyah. Beliefs and faith. So you have chunk of verses and even some chapters really discussing beliefs and faith. That's one department. Second department of the Holy Quran is Ahkam wal Qawaneen. Laws or rulings. So you've got chunk of the verses discussing laws. That's why you find some commentators of the Holy Quran, they will have only tafsir bil ahkam, for example. That's tafsir mawdu'i, thematic way of doing tafsir. Because you have 2 types of tafsir. You have tafsir tartibi, you have tafsir mawdu'i. Tartibi means what? You start from Fatiha up to Nas. You don't skip any chapter. You don't skip any verse. But there's another one they call thematic, mawdu'i, topical, if you like. Whereby they go to particular topics, like Majmu' al-Bayan of Allama Tabarasi. It's not full Quran, it's thematic. Allatullah Makarimi Shirazi has 2 types. One amthal, full, tartibi, and has one thematic. So some will go and they'll say my tafsir is based on ahkam. So second department of the Holy Quran is what? Rules, laws. And the last or the third main department of the Holy Quran is qasas. Bil Fath. Stories. Or if you like, histories. But what is interesting is that if you look at all these three, the last one, the qasas, is central to all the two. The ahkam, the aqaid, evolve around the qasas al-Qur'aniyah. That's why the ayah I quoted, Surah Yusuf, verse 3, نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص. أحسن القصص. What is قصص؟ بمعنى أثر أو أثرات. يعني القصص بمعنى الأثرات أو الأخبار المتتبعة. So when you talk of قصص, we're talking of effects or perpetual news. So Allah says in the Holy Quran, Surah Yusuf, to our beloved Prophet, نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص يعني أحسن الأثر. We narrate to you the best of stories. Because Allah says, وَإِن كُنْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. Gafilin, you are among those who forget, but don't take the face value meaning. That before this you did not know, because I'm your only teacher. There is no any teacher for you. Because the knowledge of the Prophet is ilmul ladunni. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. Nobody taught the Holy Prophet. Allah is his teacher. Jibreel is just messenger to Prophet. He's a postmaster to Prophet. So, the stories is central to the rest of the verses of the Holy Quran. Now, stories of the Holy Quran discusses at least three things. If you look at every story in the Holy Quran, you can categorize all the stories into three. One, the mawdu'a. What exactly the stories of the Quran discuss? Number one, the ghaya. What's the main objectives behind these stories? And number three, the khasa'is. What are the features of these stories in the Quran? So anyone who understands these three will appreciate what the stories of the Holy Quran are all about. And of course, that's the interesting part of the Quran, the stories. The rest are dry in the sense of us, but otherwise everything in the Quran is interesting. The stories relate to everyone, young and old. The young ones, in fact, they love the story. So first is the mawdu'a, the topic. What exactly the stories of the Holy Quran discuss? It discusses the stories of the previous nations and that of their prophets. You see, Allah sent how many prophets? Who can tell me? Excuse me. Who can tell me? 100 and? Ahsantum. 100 and? Ahsantum. But in the Holy Quran, how many prophets are discussed? Who can tell me? Ahsantum. Jazakallah khair al-jaza. Bless you. Only 25 of those prophets are discussed in the Holy Quran. The rest we get to know about them in the traditions. Some authentic, some may not be authentic. And that is why if we look at chapter Ghafir, verse 78, Allah makes it very clear. لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلًا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَصَصْنَا عَلَيْكَ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ لَمْ نَقْصُصْهُمْ عَلَيْكَ. Said we sent messengers before you. Some of them we narrated to you about them, and some we haven't. And it's true. The 125,000, we don't know all of them. We don't know. Because Allah says, Minhum qasasna alayk, wa minhum man lam naqsus alayk. Some we told you, some we haven't. So only 25 are discussed in the Holy Quran. Now further, when it comes to the topic, to discussing nations and their prophets, you realize Quran will also discuss their cities and towns. And always Quran uses the word Qarya or Qura. Wherever you see Qura or Qarya in Quran, it means big city and small towns together. ذلك من أنباء القرى نقصه عليك منهم قائم وحصيد. Chapter Hud, verse 100. That's this ayah. So when Allah was giving the stories to the Holy Prophet, He said, this means Amba'il Qura. These are the news and the stories of the cities and towns. And Surah Yusuf 82 uses again, وَاسْأَلِ الْكَرْيَةِ الَّتِي كُنَّا فِيهَا. Ask the towns that we were in. So Qarya, huna bimana, big city and small city, is of great importance. So therefore the topic of the qasas of the Holy Quran is about prophets, their people, and their towns. Not only that, it also discusses under the topic some of the great servants of Allah and their people. Typical example like Luqman al-Hakim. Allah discusses the story of Luqman, the story of Khidr. So there are discussions whether he was a prophet or not prophet. But what we know was a great servant of Almighty Allah, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Allah discusses his story and Musa alayhi salam. And then if you look at Surah Al-Qasas, verse 59, Allah beautifully says, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ مُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى حَتَّى يَبْعَثَ فِي أُمِّهَا رَسُولًا. There is no way Allah will destroy either a small or bigger city until and unless He sent them a messenger. So that is number one. Remember this. Anyone who is interested in the story of the Quran, first you need to look at the topics. Second thing is the ghaya, the main objectives, as to why the stories of the previous nations and their prophets as well as their cities are in the Holy Quran. What do you think are the main objectives? Who can tell me? Guidance, very good. I'll put them into perspective, but excellent.
About the
Stories. Why do we study the story of the Quran?
we study the story of Quran
Now,
is because after we study the 25 prophet,
now,
then we understand Ale Muhammad. It's
mashallah.
a witness for what Ale Muhammad is.
Absolutely. It leads us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It leads us to the Ale Muhammad. So because the life of the prophet, the 25 prophet and Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Ale Muhammad is parallel.
Absolutely.
If you check-
History repeats itself.
It's a translation
Subhanallah.
of the way Ale Muhammad is.
Ahsant.
Yes.
History repeats itself. We get to learn. Number 3.
I believe the history is kind of lesson for the present people.
Ahsantu. Ahsantu.
Past, the way they acted,
Definitely.
get the result. If we don't act the right
Definitely.
way, we will get the
You've all mentioned, I'm just going to put into perspective and share some verses of the Holy Quran in this regard. There are 3 main objectives as to why we study the history or the stories of the Quran. First objective you mentioned, Ibar wa Durus. Taking inspirations and lessons. You mentioned guidance, right? We take inspirations. فَقْصُصُ الْقَصَصِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Surah Hud, verse 12. فَقْصُصُ الْقَصَصِ. Narrate the stories. They may reflect. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. They may ponder. So there's ibar here. There are durus, lessons here for us to learn. For example, my plan was, but obviously time did not permit me. I thought I would get into some of the stories. So I wanted to do like Zulkarnain, for example. I wanted to do Musa, but of course I couldn't, time didn't allow me. I think some of the topic I pulled them too much. I wanted to cut them, but next time inshallah. So we learn lessons from this. And there are so many lessons, very interesting. If you are bored in life, read the stories of the Quran. Wallahi. The problem is Muslims don't know it. When I say Muslim, I'm not saying everyone. We only hear Musa. Musa went to Madian. Okay, Prophet Mohammed, we know he went to Ta'if. But even Prophet Muhammad, how many of us appreciate his story? Which deen was Prophet on before Islam? Quran discusses it. Hanif. So now you need to go deep into Quran to appreciate what is that Hanif. What was he doing? Because there are so many opinions that he was doing the religion of all the prophets who came before him. But of course they are all under Hanif, meaning no polytheism. But how was he praying? Which type of salah? So this all, if you go to Quran, like the story of changing of the Qibla. For example, some of you, alhamdulillah, if not all of you have been to Saudi Arabia for either Umrah or Hajj. You visited Masjid al-Qiblatain. Quran discusses it. فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ وَحَيْثُمَا كُنْتُمْ فَوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ شَطْرَ أَحْسَنْتُمْ. No, for example, the story behind Masjid Quba. So two main mosques, Quba, Masjid al-Taqwa and Masjid al-Dirar. So these are all important. So we learn lessons. Like the story of Musa, it's very deep, it's rich. How he left Egypt, how he got to Madian, how he met the two daughters of Prophet Shu'aib. So many lessons. Stories of Fir'aun, Harun, Qaman, Nimrud. So first, lessons we learn. And we get to be inspired by the verses of the Holy Quran. That's number one. The second objective, you mention it, Imran, bye, is that we get to learn through these stories that all prophets of Allah, from Adam up to our beloved prophet, they came with one hadaf, one aim. Subhanallah. And their successes continue, like they mentioned Ahlul Bayt. They came just one aim, and not two. Chapter Nahl, and of course there are other verses. Verse 36. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ. هذا هو الهدف. وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتِ. He said we sent in each and every nation رَسُولًا. Not وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا. رَسُولًا نَكِرًا. Meaning for every single nation there was someone called a prophet. But what was the aim of the prophet? Ani'budullah washtanibu taghut. That is the heart of really. Worship Allah and stay away from the idols. We come in Shahr Ramadan, we fast. We recite the verse of the Holy Quran. When we are blessed, we go Umrah, we go Hajj. Zakat, Khams, Shulmadri, you do a lot of things. Why? Is to become an abd of Allah. Whatever we do is to be abd. In kullu man fi samawat wa man fi al-ard illa ati ar-rahmana abda. Quran says that all those in earth and heaven, they are expected to come with one thing. To come with what? Being the servants of Allah. And look at the Prophet of Allah, Isa, said, Inni Abdullah. When they pointed to him, I am the servant of Allah. Our own beloved Prophet, Quran says, وأنه لما قام عبد الله يدعوه كادوا يكونون عليه لبدا. For example, Amir al-Mu'minin will say, كفى بي عزا أن تكون لي ربا وكفى بي فخرا أن أكون لك عبدا أنت كما أحب فاجعلني كما تحب. Imam Ali. He said, it is enough for honor for me that you are my Lord. And I'm proud that I am your servant. You are the way I want. Allah, make me the way you want. So through stories, we get to understand this. And you know the last main objective behind these stories of the Quran is what? Allahu Akbar. Is to console the Holy Prophet.
Wow, 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 wow.
Prophet went through so much. He pelted with stones. He went to Ta'if, for example, not far from Mecca, to propagate deen. By the time he got there, they made 2 rows, 2 lines. There was no way here for him, there was no way here for him. He had to go through this. For each step stone, he was bleeding. But of course, he will say, Allahumma ahdi qawmi fa'innahum la ya'lamun. Allah, guide my people, they do not know, that's why they are pelting me. They will slaughter a sheep and they will remove the intestines and they will do what? Throw it in the back of the Prophet. Fatima to Zahra will clean it. Prophet will come to his mosque, to the Masjid al-Haram. And if Abu Jahl and them, they will be clapping while he was praying. They will be clapping and making funny noises. So Allah shared those stories with our beloved Prophet. Of course, Prophet is Masoom. But Allah was consoling Prophet. If you look at chapter Hud again, verse 120, discusses this. وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتْ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. تثبيت الفؤاد الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. So we share these stories of the previous messengers with you to do what? To strengthen your heart, to console you, to keep you going. Otherwise, some of those Quraysh were cowards, man. They really tried to bully the Holy Prophet, isn't it? Because they thought he's yatim, an orphan, who lost his father when he wasn't mature, lost the mom, lost the grandfather, and suddenly you want to tell us you're a prophet. So therefore Allah shared with Prophet to console him. So these are the 3 main objectives of Qasasul Qur'aniyah. The last one. So you have topic, objective, and the last one is khasa, is the features, the characteristics of those stories. And those stories are really easy to understand. If you have a good Quran, I think you should be able to understand. Yes, few here and there you need traditions to qualify them, but otherwise the stories are really good. So the first feature of the Surah of Quran is that it's nothing but the truth. Allah. So you look at chapter Ali Imran, verse 62, discusses this. It's just the truth, it's haqq. إن هذا لهو القصص الحق. These are true stories. They are true. So that's the first feature. The second feature of these stories of the Quran is that it testifies what the previous nations brought. Although, if you look at some of those who are still in the religion of the previous nations, they may not have all the authentic stories with them. But Quran has the authentic stories of these prophets. لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله. We do not differentiate or segregate between any of his messengers. So, second feature is that the stories encompasses not only that of our beloved prophet, but that of also the other prophets and the messengers in an authentic way. But if we look at any other book sent down by Allah, one way or the other been tempered with. One way or the other, apart from Quran. Quran is the only one currently in its original form from the beginning to the end, not part. Of course, other religion, Christianity, Judaism, they have some in parts. But Quran is the only one right from the beginning to the end, complete. And then the last one. If you examine these stories, you realize that they are scattered in different chapters. You know, say for example, story of Musa, you cannot find it all in one chapter. You go Maryam, you go Ali Imran, you go others. So likewise, story of our beloved prophet. A lot in the Holy Quran, but you will not find it in one chapter. Be it his hijrah to different places. Because at least he had 3 main hijrahs, at least 3. Ta'if, Habasha, and Madinatul Munawwara. You'll not find it in one chapter. You'll find it in different chapters. And so these are what the stories of the Quran are all about. And lastly, you even ask. We live in a community. We live in a world or society. Appreciating the stories of the Quran will help us on how to navigate things. Sometimes we go through pains in our lives. So I look at the previous Ummah. How did they do it? For example, the story of Ashab al-Kahf. Sometimes maybe I'm not strong in my religion. And I'm young, I don't know what to do. Come, I look at the story of Ashab al-Kahf. But I know sometimes people give example. No, their time is different from our time. I understand. We are technologically advanced than them. But challenges are challenges. It's the same human being with blood inside them and bones. So appreciating this really will help us to navigate through and what we do in life. It's very, very important. Some people were asking about Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Gog and Magog. Their stories is in the Holy Quran. Very interesting story. How shayateen can play games to misguide people and take people away from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And I give you a typical example. If you understand Surah Yasin, the story of Habib al-Najjar, ordinary human being, who built his love for Allah. And he thought, I cannot be selfish. I need to carry my people along. But then the people did not budge. Even dying, he wished they join him. Bilqis, look at the story. So anyone who claims to be in luxury life, luxurious life, own the world, look at the Queen of Sheba. And how miraculously Allah guided her. Sulaiman, mashallah. Great. Dawood, great. Look at Noah and how his wife deviated. And his son deviated. So history repeats itself. He loved the son so much. He called him, come. But the son arrogantly said, Sa'awi ila jabali ya'asumani min al-ma. I will get and climb onto the mountain, and the mountain will save me from the water. The wife of Lut. The current challenge that we are faced when it comes to gender identity. Let's read the story of Lot and his wife. How she connived with people. When you see smoke coming out of my house, note that Lot is chilling, is taking a rest. Come and disturb him. So what will they do? They will rush 4 giant muscle men. 2 will hold his leg and 2 will hold his hand, and they will be doing like this to him, and they will throw him outside. Prophet of Allah. And Allah gave example. Daraballahu mathalan. Give us examples of the wife of Lut and the wife of Noah. كَانَتَا تَحْتَ عَبْدَيْنِ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا. So I cannot take faith for granted. Because the wife of Lut and the wife of Noah, كَانَتَا تَحْتَ عَبْدَيْنِ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا صَالِحَيْنِ فَخَانَتَاهُمَا. So you can never say, mashallah, I'm top in my iman. La. These 2 ladies, Allah said they were under min ibadina salihin. 2 sincere servants of ours, but they deceived them. And being the wives of the true servant of Allah, Prophet of Allah, never helped them. وَقِيلَ دُخُلَ النَّارَ مَعَ الدَّاخِلِينَ. But look at the opposite, the extreme, the wife of Fir'aun, Asiya. These are all stories of the Quran. Fir'aun, the Taghut of his time, who said, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. Yani, he's not saying Ana Rabbukum, he said, Rabbukum al-A'la. I am your greatest Lord. Fir'aun. But look at it. Allah examined him with Salihah. رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين. So a story is inspiring if you have in your family, may Allah forbid, somebody who doesn't bother about religion. No salah, no devotion. Sometimes we all examine with that in our lives, really. Sometimes you find in your family, either your son become your sleepless night. Sometimes your wife become a source of sleepless night. Sometimes the husband can become a source of sleepless night. Sometimes your brother, you never know. Somebody suddenly will say, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in Salah anymore. People can throw anything. What do? You're going to give up? You don't give up. You don't give up. You don't throw the towel. You try your level best. So you go back to the history of the Quran and try. Of course, if you try and the person is not barging, you cannot force. Lasta alayhim bimusaytir, Allah said to the Holy Prophet, you cannot force. And on the other spectrum, you find Maryam and the mother of Musa. Allah revealed unto them, of course, it's not wahy which went to the Prophet, it was ilham. Angels went to Maryam. Angel went to the mother of Musa. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَى. Baba, look at the story of Yusuf. So sometimes you and your siblings are fighting each other. You're giving your parents sleepless now because you don't talk to one another. Brother not talking to the other brother. They got into business, they destroy each other. One brother ran away with the world. We have it in our communities. There are brothers, they don't talk. When the person is coming from this door mosque, he will remain in his car until the person goes, then he go back. Quran tells us more Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers, the jealous, the enmity they built, because Yaqub saw the light of Nubuwwah in Yusuf and he loved Yusuf. And Yaqub will cry, Innama ashku bathi wa khuzni ila Allah ahsantum. I complain my grief and sorrow to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Because eventually they came back. So astaghfiru lakum rabbi, and then he seek Allah's forgiveness on their behalf. So therefore Quran, mashallah, is full of these stories, full of these lessons to help us, inshallah, navigate our lives. We pray Allah forgive us, inshallah.